Hello and welcome back to Sharing the Love. Today we're sharing the love with the most radiant, beautiful Sara Perry. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Vana. So excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for joining. My first question for you today is, could you describe yourself with 5 words?
Mm. Kind, energetic, loving, thoughtful, generous.
I love that. Alrighty, to jump into this, it's time for our love bowl. You know the drill. You just let me know when to stop and go.
Stop.
Okay. And the topic for today is growth.
Ooh, good one.
Great one. The first question on this topic today is, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word growth?
Mm. Change is the first, I'd say, word that comes to mind for sure.
Can you elaborate a bit on that?
The question I hear is, can you even grow without making 1% change?
Right.
So true growth, I think, has to come with change, right?
Definitely. We can see how that growth contributes to fulfillment because what comes off on the back of that, and you look back at the challenges and the tribulations and the trials that you went through, you're like, wow, I was able to be resilient enough to go through that. I was able to overcome things that in my mind I thought I was limited, that didn't have the capacity to go through. And so a lot of people through that growth stage, definitely in that transition period, feel very stretched and it is an uncomfortable feeling. However, I believe that the end destination of a certain growth is the fulfillment because of what you were able to overcome.
I love how you say resilience because without that trial or that hardship or opportunity, without that, do you know what growth is? Without having that journey of A to B, can you see the growth? Without sadness, do we know triumph? Without pain, do we know grace?
People get stuck at like, oh my god, what are the things that need to change now? How many things are going to change? What does that mean for XYZ? And that sometimes obscures the light of what comes out off the back of that growth, right? It's like we get
Right?
to that destination and that overwhelms us, and we tend to overlook like the why. We tend to overlook the reward, the benefit.
And I think being in the journey, that is the hardest time to understand the positive or the overcoming of the growth. It goes even deeper to when you're in growth, you're becoming a new person. You're experiencing different thoughts, different feelings, different perspectives that you may have never had before. So it feels overwhelming. You mentioned that's why we stray away from it. It feels overwhelming. And a lot of times, which I will tell everybody, please give yourself grace. Change does not happen overnight. So having that understanding and that grace, I'm in a growing period. I'm a new person. I'm trying new things. And I think it's safe to say that a growth period is trial and error, like, did this work for me? Did it not? Should I do it differently? Or do I need to give something up?
Can you share a time when you faced challenges with growth and how you navigated that?
A couple years ago, I had gotten a job promotion and it was in another state. It happened so quickly, too. It was like a 2-week time difference of getting the job and deciding to pack everything up and move 17 hours away from my entire world. One, what a journey that experience was to not just move away from everything you knew, friends, family, your environment, but also it was my first time living on my own and in this new job. And I really thought I had my life figured out and that was the life I wanted. And quickly getting there, I realized that was not the case. Accepting that was honestly the hardest part at first. Was I just made this whole new change and sacrifice and altered my life for something I thought I wanted. And to have to then kind of sit down with myself and realize this wasn't what I expected and now is no longer what I wanted. That was hard, very challenging. In fact, it took me about a year to really honor what I was feeling and to make the change. And I had to quite literally decide, am I going to pick myself and get myself out of something that is not serving me? Or am I going to stay here because it's easier? Right thing to do. You made this choice. You made the change. See it out, right? Honestly, in that, I struggling to make that decision myself. I seek so many peers for approval, right? We always, especially hard decisions, we don't want to make the wrong one. And so I got so many different opinions, and I felt like there were 1,000 voices in my head, and I didn't know what to do. I was probably the most lost I was. And every time I kept not choosing myself, I had to keep working through that because going to work was a struggle every day, or just picking me and doing what I needed was not easy. And that was my first opportunity in life where I saw, if you don't pick yourself, what life are you living? Are you fulfilled? And then how are you giving back to not just yourself, but the world, right? If you cannot be you and thrive in your environment, how does that serve anybody? I remember crying every single night of like, what am I doing here? I'm not happy. This is not fulfilling me. And what do I do? Because, you know, it would have been quitting my job. It would have been breaking a lease, spending all this money. And then in a way, I think I felt like I failed by choosing this and it not working out, which in retrospect is absolutely not the truth. I flipped my life upside down. I quit my job without having a job. I moved back home, and that wasn't necessarily part of my life plan. But I remember leaving that place and feeling so free because I had just endured the hardest year and a half of unhappiness. And I truly bring up that because I have so many areas of growth I could talk about, but I think it's so important because I know a lot of people like hold themselves down of decisions, right? If we make that decision, we have to see it through. You've got to stick it, right? And let me tell y'all, I did that. I did that for a year and a half. I thought I had to stick it through. I'm grateful that I did it. It gave me so much growth, but I can truly sit here and see that finally choosing myself, like that was just the change that forever changed me. I also picked this journey thinking it was going to be everything for me. And that was just such a growing period. I had to stand up to bosses during that time period and friends and have a lot of hard conversations that I was not ready for. But growth propelled me into it, and I almost had no choice but to go through it.
Wow. I mean, this was more of an inspirational story than anything else, let me say. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that sometimes it's hard to revisit those moments. However, looking back, I could see that you are proud of yourself. And three words came to mind as you were speaking: one, grace; two, acceptance; and three, misalignment. And when I think of the grace, you know, you were saying you did what with the information that you had at the time. That's what you knew, and you went for it, and you took a risk, and it didn't work out. And that's one point I need to emphasize to our audience, is that not every decision you're going to make is going to turn out the way you want it to. Probably more likely so, it's not going to turn out the way you want it to. Maybe better, maybe worse, whatever that is. But the idea is that you tried and you went for it, and you won't stick with that regret of what if I went there, right? That's number one. Number two, and very important when it comes to misalignment and even the acceptance, I'll put those together, is you went and you tried it out and it didn't work out. The prolonging of that year and a half is then what creates physical symptoms. It creates, you know, these blockages in your energy. It creates the depression or the procrastination or the abuse of different substances, whatever it looks like. I'm not talking about your situation. I'm talking in the context of growth in general. It's like, why are we so ashamed of saying that wasn't the decision for me? And it's okay that it wasn't the decision for me. And that's, for me, is what growth truly is. It's holding yourself accountable, being proud. I tried it out, I did what I could, and now on to the next thing. And really, if we have proof of anything in our lives, is that everything ends up working out. We just, I feel, make it like this big thing in our head, and I do believe a huge part that plays in it is that failure. And I want to also re-emphasize on that point, is feeling like a failure. But for me, that's success. You actually went out for what you thought was your dream, and it turns out it didn't. And let me tell you, you could have gone and you could have loved it for the first year and then stopped. Guess why? Because part of growth and evolution in the natural course of the human experience, that we are ever evolving. Our perspectives are ever evolving. And so you see people that have a passion, say for football, for so many years, and then they stop having that passion. So what if they stop? It's okay that they stop, because they're a whole different person. And that's what I think the biggest friction comes, is we keep meeting past versions of ourselves instead of meeting the current versions of ourselves and accepting who we are today with everything. Because who I was yesterday before my therapy session, I'm a whole different person, let me tell you, today after my therapy session. Things just happen, life keeps happening, and we're ever evolving. So thank you for sharing that. I think there were so many wisdom nuggets in what you said, honestly.
I love how you mentioned that. Yes, and I just said it to you guys, like I felt like a failure, right? But that's such a true point, Bon, and I love that you brought that up. Why are we so hard on ourselves for that? You're right. Just putting yourselves out there, you cannot fail unless you try.
Right.
So is it really failure?
I do want to add that, and I said this in another episode, but I heard it on a podcast the other day, and it's like, failure is feedback. Feedback is knowledge, and knowledge is power. So you don't want the power? So you don't want the knowledge, the wisdom? And so many of us, again, you said retrospect quite a few times. Like, yes, when you look back, you're going to see it. And fine, it's easier said than done than when you're actually experiencing it. But just the acknowledgement that it's coming can make things way easier.
Even the acknowledgement of, now you also have the wisdom that your next situation, you will be able to identify that probably a little quicker than you did before. And that's the growth.
Wow. And this is a really important point, again, is the reflection piece. I feel so many of us keep going through life. Maybe you can vouch for that as well. Clients coming in saying, why does this keep happening to me? Because you still haven't extracted the wisdom out of it. How do we extract the wisdom? Through reflection. Literally taking the situation, putting down what worked, what didn't work, what could I have done better, how could I have done it better, brainstorming creative ideas of how, because the next time you go through it, come back to me, apply those, and tell me that the situation didn't change.
Yep, tell me it wasn't different.
My next question for you is, in the journey of self-development, how does growth contribute to self-awareness and self-discovery?
Such a great question. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's that reflection. My biggest advice, we are the only people we can control. Our feelings, the way we take things in and give it out, the way we feel about things. Like you mentioned, Bana yesterday is different than Bana today because of the reflections and perspectives that you allowed yourself to reconsider. And it could be just as simple as that, a mindset shift. It's the understanding the whys. Why do I even think that way? It's starting there, I think, is the biggest point I would make, is asking yourself, why do I feel like that? Once you understand that, then that next question is, well, how do I actually want to react to that or feel about that? And you get to decide. That's the coolest part of all of this. You get to choose, and choosing to play that out. Now you're given the growth power and letting that fulfillment be shown, not just to yourself, but to the world. What's beautiful about growth is not just you seeing it, but then also showing the world, I've grown and here's how, without even proclaiming it verbally. You're just showing that growth because now you're walking different, you're talking different, you're acting different, and you chose that.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that it does start with challenging and being curious about why do I have these beliefs? And it seems that so many of us are attached deeply to our perceptions and our beliefs because it gives us that sense of identity. And how much is being stuck in one narrow-minded identity doing for you? There's friction in not wanting to be open and to experience different views on life. One of the exercises that came to mind that maybe we can share with our audience is the to be list, which is essentially just writing out 5 things for, say, the year of 2024 that you want to be. So instead of focusing on the to-do list, because we're not human doings, we're human beings, right? I want to be consistent. I want to be healthy. I want to be committed. I want to be disciplined, whatever that looks like for you. And then figuring out what do you need to do to be those. In that exercise itself, that's growth contributing to self-discovery and self-awareness.
And then I love how you brought up, sometimes we are stuck in our own ways, right? We're not all perfect. We're not perfect. We'll never be perfect. No. We're always going to have something we can do better. And that's also power right there. We can always be better. How awesome is that? We can always improve ourselves. Yeah. That's amazing. You have to choose it though. Yeah. You have to do the work to do so. If you don't like this and it's not making you feel good, it's not aligning, it feels off, that is your body telling you, maybe let's look at it differently. Let's allow growth and change.
If growth was a color, what color would it be and why?
Yellow. And I say that because I think of the sun, and that is truly what lights up our entire world. We get the sunrise of seeing it come up, and it's all different colors. And we also get to see the beautiful sunsets. That's change, right? We started the day, and now we're entering night. And what happened in that time period? What insights did you gain? What change did you implement? What growth did you have? What fear did you overcome? There's so much that can happen within a day. And also it's that light that guides you to your growth. There might be a dark cloud over you. That sun's still shining. And there's a saying that flowers need the sun to grow. And not every flower looks the same, but the sun looks the same to everybody. So that light just guides you, and let it guide you.
That's literally what came to my mind when you said the sunset and the colors and the sunrise. Is the sun is one and the same. It stays the sun and it stays yellow, and we all have the sun. What's one piece of advice you can give to our audience who are wanting to invite more growth into their lives?
To give yourself grace throughout your journey of growth. There's going to be hard times. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys it's going to be a walk in the park, because that would be a lie. The only person that we can stay true to and stand by and stick through the mud with is ourselves. That is the only person we have at the end of every night, every day when you lay your head on that pillow. It is you and you only.
Let's not intellectualize what Sarah is saying. Let's really start to take into account the impact of having that grace, because not only within a growth journey, if I'm looking at life is a whole growth journey, and it ebbs and flows, and we know that this is the law, this is the rule of life, that it's going to be ups and downs, and it's holding yourself in that high regard. I can take it, I can make it through. Let's keep going and get excited. Get fucking excited about the growth. That's the one thing I would like to give as advice, is like, get excited about it and remind yourself of that big why. That's what you can get off the back of it. It changes your life. To wrap up, where can our audience connect with you?
Would love to chat with you, so please feel free to email me. My email is saranperry.com at saranperry.com, and you can also find me on social media at Sara N. Perry.
Everyone needs to reach out to this wonderful lady. Her insights, her perspective, her grace, her compassion, unparalleled. I'm so honored to have you. Thank you so much for joining. This is Sharing the Love. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, the whole shebang. Let us know what your biggest takeaway was from our session today, and we'll see you again in our next episode.